So please give a warm round of applause to a great activist, Luke Webber.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. So today I want to take us on a journey through the ages to give some perspective on where we are at with animal rights and veganism. Then we'll trace that back to the beginning of the movement, as well as look at some of the first instances of animal rights as a concept. Let's look at how the shifts happened historically, as well as from my own experiences and anecdotes in the 21 years since I decided to completely eliminate animal products from my life. My intention for this speech is to help you all gain a better insight into how far we have come, but also how long the concept of animal rights has been around, and the time it has taken us to reach the point we are at now. It is undeniable that when considering animal protection, we are in a constant state of emergency. But rather than complicate things, we need to appreciate the things that are happening and be positive about these changes. Recent changes have been big and significant. Whether we all agree or not, I believe we can still be a strong force regardless of our different approaches to advocacy and the animal rights movement. I definitely don't always agree with all of my friends all of the time. This is what it means to have independent thought. We should be able to question things you might not agree with without fear that it will have repercussions on relationships. Being a good friend is to be open and to debate, discuss and collaborate on ideas rather than argue and be upset about your differences. At the end of my speech today, I'd like to invite you all to ask me any questions you may have, or you can come and see me at the Vegan Alliance tent, which is just back there on this side of that little row in the middle. So let me now articulate how I see us moving forward as a movement and the most effective way I believe we will do this. So let's start at the beginning. Back in 500 BC, Pythagoras, a Greek philosopher and mathematician, first promoted kindness towards all species, including humans. Around the same time, followers of Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism promoted ahimsa, or non-violence and kindness to animals. Although not always 100% vegetarian, the concept was there and began to be promoted. I'm an atheist, but I think this Buddhist quote sums it up well. All beings tremble before violence. All love life. All fear death. See yourself in others, then whom can you hurt? What harm can you do? And how true that is. All living beings value their life. This was just the beginning. After that came references in Judaism, Christianity, and Japanese history, to name a few. Into more modern times, just before the European Renaissance period, between the 14th and 17th century, well-known people like Leonardo da Vinci adopted and promoted a vegetarian diet, based more so on a strong ethical connection to animals, which led many authors, poets, and philosophers through the European Renaissance period to follow suit. A well-known quote from Leonardo da Vinci: "A time will come when men such as I look upon the murder of animals as they now look upon the murder of men." I think about this quote a lot. If we look back on a lot of the things we once used to deem acceptable and imagine them happening now, we would be horrified. I believe we are right on the cusp of that time he mentioned, and the mainstream shift towards veganism and animal rights will soon dominate over the idea that eating animals is normal. I can see the beginnings of this every day, dripping slowly into everything we do, and we need to accept and embrace it as a move towards abolition together. Less and less people are proud to post about their cooked animal parts on social media. More people apologize for their actions when eating them in the company of vegans. And the word vegan is plastered everywhere these days, including massive companies like Hungry Jack's, who have absolutely riddled their restaurants and marketing campaigns towards their new vegan options. This progress isn't always popular amongst all vegans, but let's touch on that a little later. We could discuss the points in time when vegetarianism made its mark, but let's skip that and move to extreme vegetarianism, or AKA veganism. In 1944, animal rights advocate Donald Watson, the founder of the Vegan Society, wanted a term to name those who did not consume animal flesh, as well as dairy and eggs. So he coined the term veganism. Perhaps not the first person to ever solely consume a vegan diet, but this was the start of the movement we know today. And this is where the movement really started to gain some traction. And those who abstained from all animal products could now identify as something and consequently strengthen the idea that animals mattered. Even some of today's most influential people, including actors, politicians, and musicians, have adopted a vegan lifestyle. And also, those who I would have never thought would join the ranks in our family and friends. Right now, veganism is booming. It's everywhere. If I go to a restaurant and they have no vegan options, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this place? But this shift has taken some serious time, like a lot of time, as you can see from the brief history I've just given you. The whole reason I wanted to give you this timeline was to give you the perspective you need to understand how big some of the changes are that are happening right now, the significance of those, and why we should be so happy with them. Jumping back to the start of my vegan journey in 1997, and as mentioned in my speech last year, 1997 was a time when your local supermarket was lucky to have a packet of vegan hot dogs and a tub of Nuttalex. And I felt so lucky that there was an all-vegan restaurant in Adelaide, which still exists. Does anyone know Veggie and Loving It? It's still one of the best. I was so thankful when Anywhere offered something vegan, as not only did it expand my options to 2 or 3 places to choose from, or a different flavour of sausages to eat, but it also meant something was happening. Veganism was growing. Could I comprehend veganism in 2018? Absolutely not. I vividly remember sitting with my friends in my share house in Wayville around 2000, 2001, where eating vegan was everybody coming over, chipping in a few dollars, and cooking pasta with tinned mock meat and homemade cheesy sauce made out of flour, cheap soy milk, lots of Nuttalex, and whatever spices I had laying around. Trying the same recipe a few years ago tasted like melted cardboard and salt, and my wife spat it out. In 2000, we would sit around and say things like, imagine if there was a place like McDonald's but all vegan, which right now, in 2 locations in Adelaide, there is. It's called Lord of the Fries, Australia's answer to vegan fast junk food. I sometimes still can't believe it when I'm eating from places like that, and I do a lot. I still can't believe that the fantasy me and my friends had nearly 20 years ago is now becoming a reality and becoming more and more common every single day. This is only one of the examples of things progressing to a place I could never have imagined. And I can definitely tell you that standing here in front of this many people at a vegan festival was something I never thought would happen either. I never thought there would be this many vegans in the entire country, let alone a whole festival dedicated to it in Adelaide of all places. So thank you for your kind choices and thank you for being here today. We've briefly covered the long history of vegetarianism, veganism, and covered my brief period of 21 years and the changes that we've seen in that small amount of time. So let's now put all that into perspective. In recent years, the plant-based food industry, the awareness of veganism and animal rights has blown up. It's surpassed anything any of us had ever dreamed of. But looking at that long timeline, this has happened in a tiny period of time. It went from next to no awareness to one of the fastest growing movements of all time in about 5 to 10 years. In the US, the amount of people identifying with veganism has increased 600% in 3 years. In the UK, 350% in 10 years. And Australia, being the 3rd fastest growing region for veganism, has seen a 92% increase in plant-based foods over the last 4 years. These are massive statistics, but again, all happened in a very small space of time. For thousands of years, people have tried advocating for animals, have encouraged others to keep them off their plates, and tried to make change. And for thousands of years, those cries for help went unnoticed. Only now we are seeing some real results. So let me make something really clear. I'm a vegan who has always believed in the abolition of the meat and dairy industry, the abolition of animal suffering caused by humans, and the abolition of the degradation of planet Earth due to the destruction from animal agriculture. And I know how it feels to want immediate change right now. I got into veganism through militant heavy metal bands such as a band called Earth Crisis, who sang about direct action, destruction of property, the burning down of buildings used to torture animals, and the liberation of them from factory farms and laboratories. The music I love is angry, aggressive, and heavy, but the lyrics of these bands spoke to me. And from music that most people would think was evil or morbid, I discovered a community of people who use this medium to sing about the protection of animals, kindness, and living a sober lifestyle. I grew up wanting to smash the system in any way that I could, and believe me, I still do. That rage is still alive and well inside me. And if I could, I would destroy every part of the meat and dairy industry tomorrow. Me and my wife would do that. If it was realistic, but it's not. I know what it feels like to see inside factory farms and slaughterhouses, to see livestock trucks ferrying sheep, chicken, and pigs up and down the freeway to their final destination. We've spent many hours monitoring the live export massacre in Port Adelaide, watching bruised and battered sheep be loaded on trucks in 40-degree heat. We've seen ducks shot in front of us in the Victorian wetlands and been abused by hunters. We've watched grown men wrestle baby calves at rodeos while we tried to blend in so we could document it. I've taken animals from factory farms, rescued kittens and dogs in Bali from villas and trash heaps who didn't always make it, but we at least made them comfortable for that short amount of time. And I've subjected myself to plenty more miserable situations in order to do something to help. We all feel desperate a lot of the time. We've cried because we can't do enough, and all we want to do is make it stop. Sometimes those aggressive tactics are still welcome, but I now understand how real change has to happen, and that all forms of actions for animals work towards the end goal of total liberation. I try to see things from many different perspectives and welcome anything that brings about change. We have to be smart and control that overwhelming urge to only use aggression and force to make people understand, which is so difficult when all you want to do is make the suffering stop. Anything less than everything does not seem like enough sometimes. It's taken all of these years being vegan and an animal rights advocate to understand how effective change comes about. We need to support the progress that we make and welcome change in any form to help plant that seed in people's minds that turns an animal from a product to someone. When that seed sprouts, it changes perception. When the perception changes, old habits get questioned. When old habits get questioned, we reconsider our morals, and when they are addressed, we can no longer deny that what we do to animals is wrong. So no matter where that seed sprouts and how tall the tree grows, this is change. Culture, tradition, our backgrounds, and the way we were brought up all play a big role in our perception. And through my recent interactions with a bunch of farmers, I have learned that some people still just think what they do to animals is normal. They're still disconnected, and it's going to take persistence and education to break those molds. But it is happening. So let me just touch on that for a second. My wife and I, we rescued a Brahman cow about 6 months ago. His name is Kevin. We took him from a farmer who actually asked us to help because he didn't want to send him on the slaughterhouse truck. The farmer had developed a bond for him, but his wife said he couldn't keep him and he had to go on the truck the next morning. This was the first time I had heard a farmer extend his compassion like that. So 2 city slickers, like myself and Amy, had no idea what we were doing, but we took him on and have tried to give him a comfortable life the best we could. It definitely isn't easy. It's cost us a ton of money, lots of stress, no spare time to just relax on our days off work. So we both work full time, but to see his happy face every week when we go to visit him makes it totally worth it. Kevin has taught us both that farmers aren't always as awful as we thought. We definitely don't like what they do to animals, but through having Kevin, we've had so much help from the local farmers that it's actually unbelievable. They gave us materials to build him secure fencing. They gave up their weekends to help us build everything he needed to be safe. They've fed him for us, brushed him, cuddled him, and keep in mind, these are people that previously would have thought the idea of brushing and cuddling a cow was absolutely ridiculous. We've fed them vegan sandwiches, denied their offers for barbecue, and talked about how much we love animals. And we can see that they are starting to realize that perhaps we have a point. It might take some time, but through Kevin, we've been able to show people who probably thought vegans or vegetarians were nuts, that we're just normal people who care about all animals, and perhaps teach them that animals are someone and not just the commodities that they have seen them for their entire lives. These people have never been exposed to the idea that animals deserve to live, just like us. And that's made me want to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to help them get it. These people have never mocked us or made fun of us, and all those times I've said awful stuff about farmers, I do feel in about 90% of those cases, I could have handled it more maturely to have a better outcome. Kevin has helped me change my style of advocacy, you could say. So that's a little bit about Kevin and how he's helped me see things from a new perspective. Last night, about 10 p.m, myself and Amy flew in from Bali. We spent 2 weeks there volunteering with Cat Rescue at Villa Kitty Bali, who rescued dogs as well. We also managed to secure 2 pigs in Bali who have been living in tiny, hot concrete pens, the mum for years, and we saw the son born there 6 months ago. Through our regular visits, we have connected with members of the local community to try and educate them and help them understand what it means to be kinder to animals, despite the cultural differences. One local who we've become very good friends with agreed to give us the pigs. And he's also offered us some land at a very good rate to use to build a small, safe place for them. We will run this property in conjunction with him and his family to employ some locals, rescue animals, and to help continue educating the community about animal rights and how to properly care for them. This is just another example of working in conjunction with those who may not have previously understood, and strengthening those relationships to make a difference to the lives of animals. These are the reasons we asked people to support the Vegan Alliance. The whole reason the idea for this speech arose was because of how many times I have seen or heard vegans and animal rights activists shut down something new because it was based on total abolition. That was me once also. Some of the things I have seen debated were when vegan food brands were bought out by huge parent companies whose business in profiting off the slaughter of animals was declining, and they saw a market in the plant-based food industry. This relationship brings the distribution of vegan brands to so many more people, and will have them take on more vegan brands and drop the crueler ones once they realize that times are changing. Fast food chains are adopting vegan options, giving people faster, easier ways to eat cruelty-free. Puppies can no longer be sold in pet shops in Victoria, stripping back the demand for backyard puppy farms to continue to operate and expose dogs to terrible conditions. Many are surrendering their dogs to organisations like Oscar's Law. Single-issue movements, so another controversial discussion point within the vegan community sometimes. Organisations like Sea Shepherd are helping so many people who otherwise would have never considered animal rights make a connection to our oceans, the lives that inhabit them, and consequently our Earth and its other non-human inhabitants. The live export industry is sitting on the brink of ruin, creating a stepping stone and a precedent of how we should consider animals and the way in which we treat them within our society. All of these things matter. The live export campaign cops a bad rap, as it may seem like it's not for all animals, or that it's just an animal welfare fight. but it's so much more. I once used to be so confused as to why someone would support issues like this. It seems so hypocritical, considering a lot of the people weren't vegan. But the reason someone like myself and Amy now work so hard against this industry is because it's one of the most popular fights for normal people to join, and they join for many reasons. But ultimately, it puts animal suffering into the mainstream. The media cover it, the rallies are huge, and over 80% of the population want it banned. It gives animal rights a spotlight and drops those seeds far and wide for people to start considering animals. Amy has met with and worked with the state and federal government on many occasions to help educate and advise them on why this industry as a whole is something that they should not support. This is how change happens. The changing of laws, the changing of things in conjunction with policymakers and MPs, and collaborating with other groups to get the job done. Not everyone who attends live export rallies is vegan, just like everyone who attends a Sea Shepherd event isn't, or votes to ban the greyhound racing industry. But it is a solid starting point for so many. In my years, I've seen people go from meat eaters to vegans just because they were surrounded by other people who cared for animals. Because they began to realize that the sheep on the ship who they're trying to save is no different from the sheep on the local farm who also wants to live. It has been proven through countless studies that if the live export industry is taken out, then onshore animal agriculture will suffer. It's a no-brainer. That point doesn't suit our strategy though, so of course we don't promote that in campaigns. But the goal of complete abolition is still there. And the major contributors to the campaign here in SA especially are all vegan and believe all animals deserve respect and understand why this particular campaign is so vital to the movement. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of supporting places like Hungry Jack's because they are a massive animal abusing company who are just doing it for the money. And that's fine. You don't need to eat there. But think about how great this is for the movement, for awareness, for transitioning people to help make being vegan easy, more mainstream and normal for people like our family, our colleagues, and our friends. I think about it like this. You're a vegetarian who hasn't yet committed to a vegan lifestyle because on the weekend you like to go out and get a little wild and you always end up eating a veggie burger with cheese when you and your friends are hungry late at night. But now you don't have to miss out or feel like you're weird or a party pooper and can make that commitment now because a massive burger chain who's open 24 hours has vegan burgers that taste great. Those small things make someone who either lacks confidence, doesn't want to be the odd one out, or hates the idea of being inconvenienced feel empowered that they can now live a vegan lifestyle easily and happily. And perhaps you think, yeah, come on, Luke, you're supporting a company that kills millions of animals every year. This is true, but so are you when you buy from the supermarket, eat at other restaurants that sell animal products, or shop anywhere that is not 100% cruelty-free. It's okay for you to not do it. I get it, you might not need it. But for others, it helps them finally move forward to becoming vegan, and it normalizes the lifestyle. It puts vegan options in the face of everybody, everywhere, all the time. If this is supported and does well and makes those companies money, they recognize that vegan food is a thing, and then they add more options. And what do they do when they add more options to the menu? They eliminate the other ones. I would literally take out non-vegan products to add vegan products to the shelves. And over time, I would watch that vegan shelf space grow. The supermarkets didn't get any bigger. They just made room for what sold well, and that was plant-based food. Small steps make a massive difference. It's taken this long to tear away at just a small part of the industry that thrives on animal abuse. Finally, the world is aware, and all of these small steps 10 years ago would have been deemed impossible. But it's happening, and we should be so proud. Don't get me wrong. I do feel weird sometimes that everything I do or advocate for isn't always for all animals. But it is in the big picture. In the same way that a pig vigil is just for pigs, all of these steps ultimately will help all animals through the awareness that they bring. You don't need to feel like you need to buy from Hungry Jack's, pizzas at Domino's, burritos at Zambrero's, or even involve yourself in the live export push. But just know that it all helps. It all makes a difference, and that even myself, a long-term, somewhat militant vegan, can see the benefit in being positive about these steps rather than negative. Something someone does for animals might not always be my way. I often see events and forms of activism and think that it wouldn't be the way I would go about things. But who cares if we disagree or do things differently? It's all change. It's all awareness. It all puts pressure on the industry and keeps them on their toes. But something we all need to remember is who this is all about: the animals. Even within partnerships, like my wife and I, we don't have to agree. I started the AV chapter, Anonymous for the Voiceless chapter here in Adelaide. But AV would be my wife's worst nightmare as a form of activism. Everyone's different, and everyone's ability is not the same. So therefore, we all have our own way about how we get our message across. None of us know everything, and we're all learning. Don't lose sight of the massive changes we are finally seeing and support the things that will help push this forward. We're all here because we share a common belief that animals deserve love, care, and safety. So let's fight as one and stand united. At the end of the day, I reiterate how far we've come, but how much more we all must do to continue to this state of emergency. So now, what I would like to do is give anyone the option to ask me any questions. You can ask me right here while I'm on the stage. Otherwise, you can head down to the Vegan Alliance tent and come and pick my brain there a little bit. Does anyone have any questions at all about what I've said today? Yes? Amy spends, the question was, why is Anonymous for the Voiceless not my wife's cup of tea? More so because she doesn't want to, it's just not her form of advocacy. She does a lot of stuff for the Live Export campaign, and I think being in the face of the public and maybe approaching people to talk about animals the way AV does, might not necessarily be the way that she feels comfortable doing it. But you are welcome to come over to the Vegan Alliance tent, and she'll be over there as well, and she'd be happy to give you a little bit more information on that. Does anyone else have any more questions? No more? Well, you can come and see me a little bit later on if you like. Well, thanks everyone for being with me here today. You got one, yeah, over there? Oh, just waving? Okay, thank you.
Hey, hello. There we go. Whoa. Hang on, one sec.
How did you go about getting the financing to do the project you're doing in Bali and things like that? Because that seems a block to me.
Yeah, sure. So we have the Vegan Alliance, which is a not-for-profit project that me and my wife work on. And all the money that we raise, previously we've always donated to different charities and different organisations that we liked. And we've sometimes been able to donate thousands of dollars from our merchandise sales. So for us, that's been really, really good. Then when we moved into actually rescuing animals, obviously our expenses went up, and we wanted to give these animals we had the opportunity to save a good life. We didn't want to see them die. And so through the Vegan Alliance, as well as support the charities that we like supporting, we're actually able to also help fund things like saving animals in, it's recently only been in Adelaide, but now we've been given the opportunity to save these pigs in Bali. So some of our funding will go to help put the walls up for the enclosure for the pigs, make a little bit of space, because right now it's a bit of a jungle. We need to make a little bit of space for them. So there's a few costs involved in paying the locals as well. We want to make sure the locals are paid well. So any of our T-shirt sales, anything that we do for raising funds will go towards that. Anyone else got any other questions? Feel free to ask me anything. Don't be shy. I love questions. Okay, it's looking good. All right, well, come and see me later at the Vegan Alliance tent. Thanks, everybody.
Huge round
Appreciate
of
it.
applause, please. Good job, bro.
Thanks, great work, man.